membership charity, a national membership charity called Children England. Quick show of hands, who's heard of it before? Oh, it gets better every time. So we are a small charity, national, no direct service delivery, and the day that I took over in 2013 was the first day in 72 years that we didn't have a core grant from government. So I lost nearly 1.5 million in a day, and we have successfully turned ourselves around we decided to embrace that moment and commit to never going back for government money. We thought if we should be here and the charity sector wants us to be here, then we should be funded by charity for charities. And I'm here because along that pathway we got the amazing experience of being core grant unrestricted funded by the Tudor Trust. So we are now in our 4th year of being core grant unrestricted funded by Tudor. More recently, I've actually been joined by a completely unsolicited core grant for the next 3 years from a trust called Bladegrave Trust. And that's one of my points, there's a contagion that happens when you show faith. But at the point where we got funding from Tudor, I can say with cast iron certainty, because the minutes show it, we would have shut without them. And they awarded us £150,000 over 3 years, unrestricted, to be spent and drawn down as we needed for cash flow. It was the most generous, kind of completely committedly open award of money. It was nowhere near our total costs, but it literally saved us. And I can explain to anyone who wants to understand why. But I thought I'd say a few things about what I loved about the process that was so different from the average charity's experience of bidding and receiving funding. And then some of the ways in which it had an impact that is way beyond its financial value. So what I loved, very low paperwork. You're asked explicitly no more than 2 sides of A4. There is no form, there's no template, there's no box ticking. And you are told, don't mention money, just tell us about your mission. Don't create a project and cost it. Tell us who you are, tell us what you're about, tell us what you're facing at the moment and how we might be able to help. And if we get that, and we're interested in that, we'll work out what the money needs to be, not what you dare ask for. And that was just a revolution. It was quite hard, as someone who writes bids, to stop myself from going, just that much, that would help. They said, don't speak about money, we'll work that out. That's the last thing we work out. So 2 sides of A4, and a process that was fully through and money in the bank in 2.5 months. So for the fact that we actually needed to know that as soon as possible in order to know whether to bid for other pieces of work or issue redundancy notices, that was invaluable. Also, the award letter, I just have to tell you, I mean, some of these things might sound like small motifs, but they gave us a letter awarding us the grant that was very long, and it actually described back to us our mission and our strategy and what we're all about more beautifully than I had managed myself to date. Some of that went into our reframing of the mission, but they had paid so much attention, and that letter said, we're just really excited to see what you do. And that letter is still sort of like around the office, it went around the whole team, and I didn't say a word to any of my team about what we were going to do with that. It was just a relief to know that we had it. I'm not joking, within 2 weeks I had more creative ideas from them about what things we might be able to do now than I've ever had. And they weren't in that, that it unlocked a belief that maybe we've got space and certainty to do some things here. Let's think of that first, rather than, oh, here's a funding opportunity, or what can't we do because no one will fund it. So what impact it had, we're still here. So one of the things I want to say, for a small percentage of our turnover, and they don't seek it, but we credit Tudor with everything that we do. Their grant making to us has contributed to everything we've achieved and everything we've tried to achieve. We don't discriminate, we don't patch it up and say you didn't fund that bit of work. They contributed to everything by simply giving unconditionally. It was mission funding. So we actually, you know, it was about saying we believe in and invest in anything that you might need to do, not just the things that we are most attracted to. It acted as a catalyst for other funders. It acted, when one funder has gone through that process and said, we think there's something about you, we're committed enough to seeing what it is, other funders and donors say, okay, well, then maybe there's something to it. And it's subconscious, I'm not saying it triggers everything, but it enabled us to then build more project bids and successful bids, and more recently to actually donor fundraise for policy work, which is not common. So it acted as a financial spinal cord for us to be able to cost projects sensibly, rather than trying to do the horrendous jigsaw puzzle of trying to work out how discrete one-year projects and three-year projects could contribute something back to our core costs on a proportionate basis that you didn't know the total. I mean, really, I'm not good with maths or Jenga, but it took all of that out. It just meant we can think about a project honestly. The other thing it did was to, for the first time, to stop being aware that everyone in the team was funded by a different funder and had different timescales. It's like they were funding us as a whole. So we didn't allocate that funding to one member of staff and then say the other one is, you know, you're at risk at the end of this year. Even if sometimes that's technically the case, they were investing in all of us together. It enabled us, in that window, we had all had frozen salaries for some time in making adjustments and seeing cuts. It gave us the space to raise and rationalise salaries that had been all over the post because of different funders. And different posts weren't matching each other. We were able to do that on our own terms that made sense, and then use that as the basis for next rounds of bids. And that was long overdue for our staff, and we couldn't have done it if we didn't have our own resource to do it with. This I feel really strongly about. So I hope this explains it properly. Every single pound given unconditionally is more valuable than a conditional pound. Doesn't mean that we don't need conditional pounds, but for every pound that I get on a contract or a designated project grant, I owe something back against. Mentally, energetically, there's got to be something out. A pound given unconditionally is just a straightforward investment in everything that we do, in our energy, and you don't owe anything back, and it's completely liberating. And finally, to give you an example of what we've been able to do during that period, I think, you know, we have lots of plans and ideas and things that we do in development, but as a campaigning and lobbying body, sometimes we have to be ready to respond to stuff that's come from somewhere else. And during this 3-year grant period, the government came out with the Children and Social Work Bill, and an incredible but completely unexpected clause to try and get rid of children's social care duties to children council by council. Nobody had expected it. It definitely wasn't in our work plan, but we needed to commit to at least a year's lobbying to try and do our job of coordinating across the sector and trying to bring voices together to campaign and lobby. That year spanned 2 financial years, and we were able to simply reorder our work plans, put whatever resource we needed into that, and we successfully got it removed. And it took a year, and it would never have been in anyone's work plan. It would have been about chivying, like, we would have been struggling. But our core function, our mission, was about doing that because it was the right thing, and having core funding this year and next year without needing to ask questions about whether our funder would be upset or whether it would put other funders at risk. That actually has a massive real-world external impact that I don't think could have happened without it.